And I said so many times, I will never move to Leisure World. Never. I've said that so many times to people. And my friends that were listening to me for 10 years were like, Joan, you're never moving. We're so tired of hearing that you're moving, and you're not moving. I looked at so many properties. I looked in Laguna Woods. I looked at homes. I looked at apartments. I looked everywhere. And it was over 10 years I looked. And slowly, I realized that I could live here and live a more simple life in a beautiful environment. But I had to find the right place. I wasn't going to take a big downgrade. And when I walked into that home, I knew immediately. It was like being in the mountains. The trees, the eucalyptus trees in the front, the wood everywhere, wood ceilings, wood on the floor, and open space. The backyard was trees. So it was like being in the mountains, and I'm a nature person. So I adored it. I loved it, and I bought it. 28 years. The plaza area was just incredible. It was a wonderful place, and the homes there were pretty put together. I loved the house. I loved the trees. I loved the neighborhood. I loved that El Dorado Park was right down the street, that the duck pond was right down the street, and I liked my neighbors, and I felt that at some point I would move on to something else. You know, it was difficult for me to sell that house, very difficult. But it became apparent that I no longer could really maintain it by myself. The expenses were too much. The trees, the maintenance on 13 eucalyptus trees in the front yard. Every time I did I trimmed those trees, it was $800 to $1,000. So it was very expensive, the maintenance. And so I realized that I no longer could do it after 28 years. I actually knew Gia, and so I called her up. I had a lot of realtors that were dying to list my house. And so I had a meeting with Gia. She came over, and we sat down, and she did a thorough assessment of me, you know, who I am and what I want, what I value. And I was really impressed with that, because it is a personal decision. It's not just buying a property. It's a personal, emotional decision. She helped me realize that I could find another beautiful home with less maintenance and in a different environment that would be wonderful for me in a different, you know, phase of my life. And so we explored, we looked, we talked, you know, we had lunches, we spent a lot of time together. And well, just the professionalism and the team that, you know, took such attention to detail. And I've worked with other people where they don't call you back. And Gia always called me back, as busy as she is. And her staff would call me back. And so I felt like I was really in professional hands. And I felt that she knew what she was doing. And I needed that. I had to trust her, because this was emotional for me. And I did trust her. I trusted that she knew what to do. It was intuitive on my part. It was incredible. I mean, I bought my home for $233,000, and I sold my home. I think there were 15 offers in one day. That's because the way she presented it, it was so professional. Well, I sold it for over $1 million. It was $1.2 million, $1.12 million, which, you know, I didn't expect that, and I needed every bit of it. So, yeah, it was great. I got more than I thought.
That's awesome.
people walking around with walkers, a lot of gray-haired people, and that was the stigma that I had. And I never called it senior living, and I still don't. I don't think of it as senior living because there's a lot of very active people here. And so I overcame that pretty quickly. Yeah, the first time I stepped into Leisure World, well, that was, I had been here for many, many years, because I knew people that lived here. And I loved their homes, but I didn't really like that the homes looked like, they all looked alike and they looked like barracks. And there weren't that many trees. So it looked like, you know, everybody's got the same house. Now this is over 10 years ago. And then when I decided to move here, that had changed a lot, because there were custom built homes here. And younger people were moving in, as I said, and they were making changes. They were refurbishing their homes. And so it had a different energy to me when I moved. If there's someone out there that's having reservations about moving into a community like this one, I completely understand it, because I was that way. And I was that way for a long time. But once I did it, I never looked back. And this is amazing. I never missed my house. That home that I loved so much, and I never missed it from day one. I knew it was the right decision for me, and it's so much easier. I have more money to spend. So it's a personal decision, and everybody has to decide for themselves. But for me, it took me a while, but once I did it, it was really a wise choice. But yeah, the stigma that this is where you're going to die. And that's not at all where I was going. I was moving here to live.